So we passed that piece of legislation, again, to support educators, but also to recognize truth. And I think the more we are bringing light to truth, parents are going to see, I want to follow that light as opposed to remain in the darkness.
Where can we start? It just seems like it's so overbearing to try to solve the problems we're losing on the gender conversation. We're losing on all of these fronts. But can you give us some hope of what you think we should focus on in order to just try to turn the Titanic?
I think you focus on the results. You know, some of the things that I rattled off, U.S. News and World Report isn't exactly a conservative, right-leaning entity, and it's ranking Florida #1. So I think you point to that. I think you look at some of the progress monitoring results that I spoke about in the beginning, where you're seeing palpable, tangible data that shows students are significantly increasing in learning gains when you focus on the actual subject areas as opposed to the ideology. I think, you know, competition is what's going to drive the market. And ultimately, you know, the schools in California and in Colorado, they have a reputation, unfortunately. And it's not that they have bad teachers. It's the fact that there is time that's wasted on things that are not geared towards mastery of the subject area. As a result, students are losing out, and parents are going to have to vote with their feet and decide, do I want to keep my child in a place that's, you know, fighting over, I mean, I use the restroom over here. You could tell I'm not in Florida anymore. It said all-inclusive restroom. I'm like, wait a minute, where am I? It's Washington, D.C., of course. And I'm sure you guys have that stuff as well. But thankfully in Florida, we have common sense. Women are women, men are men. We don't mix that up. In fact, that bill that I talked about, House Bill 1069, when we expanded it, K-8 prohibited instruction and, you know, has to be age or developmentally appropriate in high school, we also talked about pronouns, which was very helpful for teachers in two ways. Number one, we said your biological traits are immutable. So anybody who goes to a Bible study class, you can define what that term means, but that's in our state law, which means it's never changing. It cannot vary no matter how hard you try. It is an immutable characteristic. But number two, very importantly, this piece of legislation said you as a teacher and I as a student cannot be forced to recognize a pronoun by which we don't agree with. And what I mean, or excuse me, that is opposite biological sex at birth. And so that was huge for teachers because we had folks who were, you know, you have that parent who has a kindergartner that Johnny wants to now be referenced as Sally or as a she, and the teacher had sort of a religious conflict internally. How do I handle this? This is not truth. This is not what I believe in. I feel like, you know, I'm being forced into doing something that I don't agree with in my job. And so we passed that piece of legislation, again, to support educators, but also to recognize truth. And I think the more we are bringing light to truth, parents are going to see, I want to follow that light as opposed to remain in the darkness.
Thank you.
Yeah. And forgive me for biblical references. There were some parents who were a little offended by one of my memos. Listen to this. I mean, look, this is by far the vast minority in the state of Florida, but I was talking about it earlier with Rusty and Aaron and Lindsay, just telling them, we sent a memo out reminding parents of their rights. And one of the things that I put in there is your child will not be discriminated against on the basis of their background or the way God created them. And so that was like, oh, you can't say that. Some folks were worked up. I would imagine the folks in California and Denver, their heads would explode with a memo like that. But the reality is it's truth, and we're not going to be ashamed of that. In fact, we're going to be very proud of that. And last I checked, when we do the Pledge of Allegiance, we still say one nation under God. So it is what it is, as they say.